Wireless LAN Professionals Podcast, episode 147.
Wireless LAN Professionals is a place to educate, inform, encourage, and entertain those involved in wireless LANs. This Wireless LAN Professionals podcast is an audio manifestation of these goals. Our host is a wireless LAN veteran, consultant, designer, and teacher, Keith Parsons. And now, the podcast for wireless LAN professionals by wireless LAN professionals.
Glenn, how are you, sir?
Hey, Matthew, I'm doing just great. How are things out in your neck of the woods in Tempe, Arizona?
They are going well. We're definitely feeling the warmth already. Getting ready for the hot summer. But yeah, things are definitely warmer than they were at WLPC in Phoenix last time we were out here. So.
Yeah, those cool mornings there in February are really nice in Phoenix, I tell you.
Yeah, so hey, we're normally kind of doing blog reviews together. Last few times, if anyone's been listening, we're usually talking about blog reviews, but I thought I would kind of pause that for a moment and have a conversation a little bit more about you and kind of where you're coming from and just some of your experiences, if that's okay.
Hey, that sounds awesome. Let's go for it.
So first of all, you are CWNE what number?
Number 181.
181. So tell me a little bit about your journey to CWNE.
Yeah, well, it's been an interesting journey. I usually, a lot of people want to know, hey, how long does it take to get CWNE? And if you do one exam like a year, about 3 years. As for me, it took me 7 years. So it's just
7-year plan, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, there's a number of things that went in there, changing jobs. My dad was in the hospital for a while, so life hands you those little obstacles once in a while. But that's really how the CWNE process started for me. And unlike a lot of people too, Matthew, I think who start out, they go into the route switch in and they want to get to wireless. As for me, I kind of come to the wireless profession from a little different avenue. I had 18 years working with energy utility company in IT, but I did PC repair and PC support. So, imaging PCs and sending them out and supporting our field technicians here in the beautiful state of Florida, where I'm located. That's what I did, but I always loved RF, and I thought Wi-Fi. Hey, this is the way to go. So, started doing some training, and that's how my career kind of got started.
What was your certification journey?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I kind of said, okay, do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? So I started out. I bought one of the CWNA study guides, which a lot of people do. It's hey, it's only $30-$40, so I'll just spend that on a book, and it'll be a good reference. So I started reading through it and went out to the website and started following some Wi-Fi blogs. I said, okay, this is really kind of fun. Yeah. And I said, I think I don't know if there was like a day as I'm going to go my certification, but there was this process of saying, this is what I want to do. And a lot of people, Matthew, I just use the word passion. They just have a passion for Wi-Fi technology. I mean, it's fun. I mean, we talk with different people at different things like WLPC or some of the other webinars and things we go to, and we just start talking tech, and we just like the hours just go by, and we just love this technology. And so I think it was all kind of wrapped up together. I mean, if you hate wireless, this is not what you want to do. But if you kind of like the technology and you love this stuff, this is where you want to go. And another thing that kind of fits in there, I think I've mentioned to you and some others as well, I'm a ham radio operator, and I love ham radio. I got my first ham radio ticket back in high school using Morse code and learning radio theory. And there's a lot of ham radio that folds over, I should say, and into Wi-Fi. And so I guess all those things kind of mixed together says, this is my destiny, Luke. I have to go into Wi-Fi.
Choose wisely.
There you go. So that's kind of how things got started for me anyway.
Very cool. So there wasn't like someone saying, Glenn, we need someone who is an expert in this. Take this certification or else you're fired.
Well, no, not exactly. But when I was with the energy utility, the networking people there says, hey, Glenn knows a little bit about Wi-Fi now, so let me go down there and see if he can help find some things. And so one of the deals was there was on our 16th floor at our executive building downtown, they were having problems with Wi-Fi in one of the conference rooms. And so I went up there and I had a Fluke Air Check, which is one of those tools that we love to use. And I started measuring stuff around. And I said, "Oh, let's go see what we can hear." And so the other network engineer says, "Oh, we got to fix this." Well, we have had a union shop. And so we could not move an access point. We had to get a union contractor to come in, and we had moved the access point a little closer and solve the problem. So, that mixed into the things of, well, maybe I should do this for a living,
Yeah. So, I hear kind of a common theme talking to people about their journey. There's passion and problem. There's always
Yeah.
you have that built-in passion already, and then just solving a problem kind of opens up the door to more certification or more experience, and kind of they drive one another.
Yeah.
It
Well,
seems to be a common theme.
and other things that kind of feed into that, Matthew, is that someone kind of knows a little bit about Wi-Fi, says, "Hey, can you help out here?" My
Yeah.
wife's school, for example, it's a small private school, K through 12, here in our area, and they had just a bunch of old 211B access points just laying around. And that's what their Wi-Fi was. They knew they needed to improve it, and they said, "Hey, do you think you could help?" And so I downloaded a free app, Ekahau Heat Mapper. Some of you know what that is. It's like the light version of Ekahau Site Survey, and downloaded it, site surveyed. We pulled cable and hooked up Wi-Fi, and guess what? It worked, and it was a huge improvement. So it was kind of neat helping them. And there's another thing like, okay, well, maybe I can do this for a living.
Very cool. So you start the process. You're looking at CWNA, and then just things are starting to come together. You're obviously have this passion for it. Towards CWNE specifically, what kind of surprised you the most about that whole process that maybe you weren't expecting, as you just kind of passively got into it?
Yeah, well, maybe a couple of surprises. One, as I was working through certification, my job got outsourced to our headquarters in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I was thinking about going into Wi-Fi full time, and now I'm without a job. And so, hello. So, but I had, at that time, I was following lots of people in the industry, different CWNE people, and I kind of tweeted or DM'd one of the guys I knew and says, "Hey, wonder if you're looking for any um, wireless technicians in your company, your VAR." He was with a VAR, and he said, "Are we ever?" And so set up an interview for me, and they had just fired two people in Florida who just weren't doing the job well. And that just happened like 2 weeks ahead. And I was over at my daughter's college in near West Palm Beach, and I got this phone call from my friend. He said, "Hey, I've got an interview set up for me." I said, "Oh, you're kidding,
Wow.
And so technically, from when I had my voluntary severance through the energy utility I was with to starting the new company, I had 3 days of unemployment, and so that worked out pretty good. And it was over the holidays and the Christmas holidays, so that was fun too. But anyway, it was just like, so I think in this whole journey that if I can encourage anyone out there, you're going to have obstacles thrown in your way. I don't know what those obstacles will be, but don't, as they say, don't take the lemons and make lemonade out of them. Don't let them, discourage you too much, because you're going to have different discouragements. And just take it and to say, okay, I'm going to move on, and so just keep on moving on if you're really interested. And this is what you want to do in your career. Talk to some different people. I always tell anyone who's interested in Wi-Fi, man, first thing you need to do, I really honestly believe, Matthew, is get on Twitter. And people say, "Well, I don't do social media." I said, "Well, don't do it. Just follow people on Twitter. And you don't have to tweet. You just follow people. And it's amazing what you will learn." I still remember when the 802.11ac certification was listed. I saw it on Twitter before it was officially announced.
Yeah.
And so it was that morning. It was announced that afternoon. But still, there's just tons of things you can learn on Twitter, and then follow Wi-Fi blogs. So if anyone's kind of interested, just first thing, get on Twitter and start following people. It's amazing what you'll learn.
Very cool. Struggles, obstacles came anywhere? Was there other things that were particularly difficult for you going into, either Wi-Fi as an industry or specifically the certifications?
Yeah, and I think I kind of mentioned this before. I came out of the PC technology
Yeah.
doing Microsoft work, and so I didn't have the route switch background that a lot of people do. In fact, I talk to so many wireless professionals now, and they say, "Oh yeah, I did route switch for 15 years." I go, "Oh my goodness, I just like to have 1 or 2 full-time years of that experience to help me out." But so that was one thing. And one thing that really helped me was my amateur radio background. And I mentioned that a minute ago.
Yeah.
The ham radio technology that you learn. I mean, this is stuff that you have to know to get your FCC amateur radio license in the U.S. And I think other countries, Canada and Europe, they have the same thing. They have a test, and you have to learn radio theory. You have to learn a lot about RF and antennas. And I just love building antennas. I could, just lock me in a room with a bunch of antennas, throw away the key, I'll be happy forever,
It's
And
alive.
it's all I realize. And antenna technology to me is just so cool. And every access point has an antenna. It may be an internal antenna, but it has an antenna. And the external antennas, I've done quite a bit of site survey for warehouses and special events and point-to-point stuff, and antennas are key. So that's another thing that to me is like I still had to learn, the Wi-Fi stuff, how
Yeah.
antennas are applied, different polarizations, things of that nature. But that helped me out a lot. So
When you're talking to other Wi-Fi professionals, or whether they've got experience or not, are you finding certain things that trip people up often that maybe you find a little easier for you, or things that you can encourage people that you see them struggling with, or like I said, getting hung up on certain things, certain concepts?
yeah, and I think every I think person coming up in the industry has their little struggles doing this and that, and I like to hear what those are. And sometimes I've just, one thing I've done, Matthew, I've listed a bunch of weblogs on my blog site,
Yeah.
gkwifi.wordpress.com, if anyone wants to check them out. And there are some people in there that are just outstanding bloggers, and we kind of reviewed some of those blogs in the past on the show here. But some bloggers are really good on security. Some are really good on deployment. Some are good on site survey. Some are good at the CWAP or protocol analysis. And so if someone's having a difficulty there, sometimes I can point them to, hey, have you checked out this person's website? And that helps a bit in helping someone with the specific questions. And so I don't know if there's any specific area. I think every wireless engineer coming into the industry, they're good at some things, and other things just trip them up. I think a lot of people do get tripped up on protocol analysis, packet captures and what do all these things mean. I mean, I still struggle with that from time to time. And,
Yeah.
and because, well, one thing is I don't have to do as much troubleshooting with packet capture. Now, some people would say, listening to the podcast here, is like, what, you don't do packet capture? Well, not as much as I would like to. Some people packet capture all the time and do troubleshooting, but I'm doing a lot more deployment and other stuff right now. So, but that's one thing that if anyone has some difficulty, it's probably packet capture, protocol analysis. And if you do that, just do it regularly. Do a couple of packet captures a day and just kind of look through to get familiar with it.
Very cool. Kind of going to the actual certification for CWNE. Talk through kind of your process of when you actually started getting in the kind of the last leg of getting to that certification. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, well, and going through the whole process, and people say, well, what do you start out with? And I say, so let's start out CW. If you want to go through the CWNE process, start out with CWNA. If you have like no micro background or background at all in wireless, the CWS and the CWT certifications that CWNP has just released are really pretty good. I'm reviewing those right now.
Yeah.
For the CWNP. And I tell you what, Tom Carpenter, and kudos to Tom and his organization. They've put together some really good stuff. And as a CWNE, you would think, well, I'm not going to learn much if I review this. I'm being challenged on some of this stuff, and it's good. But if you have some wireless background, if you're already a Cisco tech or something, maybe you want to start with CWNP. So I did that. CWSP, DP, and AP. People often ask and blog, which one should I take next? I go, I don't know. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
But seriously, if someone said, how would I recommend? I would say probably do CWAP. That's the analysis. That's probably the harder of the other 3 exams. and then SPDP. You could pick whatever. But
Yeah.
I've known people, Matthew, who've done it this way. They've done CWAP, DP, and SP. Then they went back and took NA. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's backwards, right? Well, some people have done it backwards. So there's really no wrong way to do it. But if you
Yeah.
ask my process, I would do that. And then as we go through the process of CWNA, there's a lot of other things that you have to get for your CWNE. You have to get your other two wireless network certifications. You have to have 3 years of industry experience. And so that's a little bit of a challenge for someone who, like me, who isn't like 100% full time in
Yeah.
wireless, So how do I write up? Well, I did some nonprofit organization stuff, so I wrote that up. I did some work for some other organizations. I wrote that up, and had some other things that I could include with that. The other thing is your projects or your essays, they call them. And so
Yeah.
have you actually done that? And I've reviewed a few for some different CWNE candidates, and I tell people, find a problem, use your CWNP skills, and tell how you solve that problem. Again, the CWNE board of directors is not wanting to say, well, I want to describe how ETLS works in the industry. They know that because that's in the study guide. They want to know what problems you have solved and how you use your wireless skills to solve those problems, and then tell what was the result. So I'm just going to encourage anyone who's working on their process, don't give them technology, don't give them websites. This is how you do this or do that. They want to know what problems you have solved.
How you solved the
Yeah, exactly. And if you do that, you'll get your certification without a doubt. So
as a wireless LAN professional, you talked about ham radio experience. What other certifications have you found real helpful just in general that you've leaned on in your own career?
Yeah, well, I mentioned a ham radio already, and that is good. If someone ever gets bit by the ham radio bug, they'll probably never get cured, and which is a good thing. But there's just so much you can do with ham radio. I could start for 50 more minutes to talk about that. You can satellite communication, digital communication, talking to long distance country. I mean, I talked to 3 or 4 Switzerland stations this weekend because they had a Switzerland contest going on. So that was fun for my little antenna up about 30 feet up in the air. It's really kind of cool to do that. So. I had the CompTIA A plus certification. I needed that when I did Lenovo repair for the energy utility I worked for. So that's one. Network Plus is another good certification. That will not only give you aspect on the route switch of things, but it will also be one of those wireless certifications that you can use for your CWNE cert. So that's another one to go for. Some people have project skills. Now that will help you along as you work things, as you work through deployments, giving you some project skills in the background like CISSP, something of that. That won't necessarily be, I think, a CWNE certification, but it will certainly help you along. So those are just a handful of things. I'm trying to think of some other certs that I have. I've got Microsoft MCSE, and that I'm not sure if the CWNE board of directors said that was a good one or not. But the part
or even not even not the necessarily CWNP and all of them. Just as a professional, what have you found leaning on these certifications that have been useful? So whether it helps you get towards CWNE or not, but just in your field,
Yeah, well, I just mentioned about the the MCSE certification. That cert does have one section was TCP/IP, so that is some network certification there. Trying to think of some specifics.
Yeah, I know some guys that maybe we won't mention any names, Keith, but that are self-proclaimed certification junkies. That they just really love the process of learning and having different certifications. I know we've talked to Chris Avance several times on the show, and being a big Cisco guy, just talks about that whole process. And so it definitely seems that in WLAN industry, people have different approaches to certifications, and so it's just interesting to kind of hear your cert route, I guess.
Yeah, well, some of those you mentioned. I mean, I'm working right now on CCNP wireless right now. I've got a couple of the tests done for that right now. So there's another thing. Some vendors have what I call a low end certification start. I know that Aruba has a like an entry level into their certification process. Cisco, of course, but there's other certification things out there in the industry that maybe it isn't, the highest end, the equivalent of a CWNP certification, but it is training. And so there's lots of free stuff out there. You just have to kind of dig and look, and all this training will just give you a leg up as you're looking at moving forward in your career in the industry.
If you could kind of start your career over or jump in a time machine and go talk to the younger you, any advice or anything you might do differently than you've done so far?
Yeah, and I kind of touched on it before. Probably get a bit more route switch experience. That probably would be one help there. The other thing, as I kind of started, I didn't know that there were a lot of mentors out in the Wi-Fi industry. I know of one individual. I won't mention his name either, Matthew. It isn't Keith. It's a friend of Keith's. He actually has paid in the past engineers to come down to work with him. He teaches them Wi-Fi techniques and how to do site survey, and their cost is basically he pays for them to come down, and their pay, if you will, is to work with him for like a week on how to do site surveys.
Oh, very cool.
So I'm thinking, okay, it's a win-win. He got a win because he was able to get a site survey done. The engineers who came down worked with him, a leading Wi-Fi engineer in the industry, and was able to equip these two individuals with one of the best engineer technique possible. So there's another thing. There's mentors out there. You say, well, who can mentor me? You got to go out and ask.
Yeah.
Put a blurb out on Twitter and just say, hey, I have some questions. Who can be a mentor for me? And I know an individual who actually helped me get my job with my VAR said to me, says, well, there's somebody else I need to mentor now after I got my CWNE. So there are individuals out there. I won't say everyone has maybe got the mentor skills or abilities, but there are men and women, by the way. Lots of women who are getting into the CWNE ranks now, and I'm very excited to hear that. And we're going to encourage all the women listening here, says don't let these men kind of do their chauvinistic thing. You go out there and you go in for the industry, because we need women as well in the industry, a lot of them. And just go out and find a mentor and hook up with them. Maybe you can hook up podcasts or WebEx or something of that nature, or just exchange emails. That's lots of men and women want to mentor people in the industry.
Yeah, that's great. Like, get in and take initiative. Don't wait for it to happen to you. Actually,
right? Yeah,
search and look and ask.
If you wait around, it ain't going to happen. You just got to go out and take some initiative. And if you don't know where to do, I mean, shoot, ask me. Ask anybody on Twitter. Again, you need to be on Twitter. That means get started. So by the end of this while anyone's listening to this broadcast, they need to be setting up their Twitter account even as they listen to this podcast. Okay, and do that. And mentors are out there.
Going back to kind of the CWNE thing specifically, what does it mean to you to be a CWNE?
Oh my goodness, I'll start off a little bit. All of us who are CWNEs know where we were when we got the notification that we got it. I'll just tell you a snippet here. I was doing a site survey at a warehouse north of Cincinnati, and my phone starts going bonkers. All these things coming in. What is going on here? One tweet after another. I'm looking through it, couldn't figure it out. I said, CWNE, congrats. I said, I haven't got it yet. I haven't been notified. So I had to scroll through there, and I found.
So you're right about Twitter, yeah.
Yeah. So I found the one from CWNP, and I couldn't believe it. And so the only person there I could tell, there was a Cisco systems engineer there, and I told him about it. He said, I've kind of heard about it, and I told him I just got this cert. He said, well, let me give you a high five. So I gave him a high five, and the other people let me know as well. But no, it's called Certified Wireless Network Expert. I'm kind of freaky about the term expert because I don't think I'm an expert in anything, but they didn't want to put the G for guru in there. CWNG it doesn't sound right. Okay. But I just feel like I just got to a plateau, and now I have learned a certain amount of information, but I am no expert. I am
Yeah.
just learning. So I don't know what the equivalent of E in learning is. I understand CWNE
We could do like a
expert.
V for veteran or
So,
cum laude or something like that.
something like that, yeah. But in all seriousness, it's just a great feeling to know you've accomplished. But it's just like
Yeah.
I'm there, but man, there's so much more to learn. And all of us in the industry know that it ain't holding still. I mean, it continues to move forward. 211AX is out there. Internet of Things is just huge. I mean, it's just moving forward, and it just seems like almost almost every day I found that some group, needs Wi-Fi set up. It's not organization, nonprofit organization. I'll get hit up by a friend and say, hey, you could do, if you anyone could do this, and so I mean, Wi-Fi is just going full speed ahead. I just don't know if there's going to be enough Wi-Fi engineers to
Wow.
meet all the need and demand out there, and so we need more Wi-Fi engineers, definitely.
Very cool. So CWNE, what's if it's a moving target, not a moving target, but it doesn't mean you've arrived, quote unquote. What's next for Glenn?
Oh, next for Glenn. Well, I just threw that out. Internet of Things.
Yeah.
It's big. I might have an opportunity of that coming up in the near future. The thing about Internet of Things is they're not always designed well, and there's not a lot of good wireless engineers working on the design of these things in Internet of Things or the deployment. So there's one area there. Consulting, which is a thing, anyone with the CWNE, I think they're hit up pretty good on consulting. And so there's opportunities there. And then and the sky's the limit. And find out where, in fact, not only do you have a passion, I think, in the industry, Matthew, but I think we have sort of like a sub passion, if you will. I mean, I just love antennas and design, but I think you may just really enjoy deployment. You may enjoy the design part. You may enjoy security. There's a lot of sub parts of the wireless industry as well that someone can be a sub specialist, if you will.
Kind of niche down, as they say.
Yeah, exactly. And I know people who are just experts in security or packet analysis, and so there's lots of things you can do once you get into the industry and move on. And one thing as well, when some of our individuals who are listening to the podcast, let's say you're either moving towards CWNE or you have some of your certifications, if I could just encourage them, not only on Twitter, but get on LinkedIn and really develop your online profile. And it is really your online resume. I have some people who've done some in-depth research into LinkedIn, and they tell me that companies are not using hiring companies anymore or headhunters. They're actually going out themselves and finding people on LinkedIn.
Wow.
And so dress up, make sure your LinkedIn profile just doesn't have the blank avatar up there, which is gray with a white background. Put a good professional picture up there. Put in your certifications, look through, and you can search on LinkedIn how to dress up your LinkedIn profile. There's a lot of things you can do. You just don't have, you put your name, comma, CWNE or CWSP, if you will.
Yeah.
There's lots of things you can do. I know the job I have now, one of the comments that was made by the hiring manager says, I saw your LinkedIn profile during one of my interviews.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So
people are looking.
Yeah, they are. And it's interesting that they're not necessarily using hiring managers or headhunters to do it.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing it themselves. So make sure your LinkedIn profile looks good. Keep it updated. Put on your volunteer organizations, put what you do well, and that will probably help you move into the door. It might give you the interview in front of somebody else for a job opportunity.
Very cool. So here's a kind of maybe wrapping our time up. Just a fun question. What's a favorite tool that you're using these days?
Oh, favorite tool.
What's in your toolbox arsenal?
Do you even have to ask that question? We all know what it is. It's Wi-Fi Explorer by Adrian Granados. There is no other tool. As if you have a MacBook. And Adrian, if you're listening, kudos to you. Thanks again for giving back to the industry. Adrian is just a super guy. His story when he came in from Costa Rica 10, 15 years ago and just started developing software. And he developed Wi-Fi Explorer several years ago. And we all said, this is just an incredible software tool. I literally use Wi-Fi Explorer every day. It's up on my MacBook at work. I have a PC and a MacBook. My MacBook is my tool of choice, if you will. And so I've got it on there. He's also written AirTool, which is free, and Wi-Fi Signal, which is free, which you can put on your MacBook. And they are just the best tools. Now, so Adrian, thank you again for giving back to the industry. Now, my second tool of choice would be the NetScout G2, which I do not have. But I've actually had one in my hands. It almost didn't leave my hands. It was like the super glue I put on there. I couldn't give it back to the person. But no, it's a great tool also. I do have a Fluke AirTrack, which is like the G1, if you will. And it is just great. You can turn it on, and if you can turn it on and look at the health of a Wi-Fi network in 30 seconds, people will think you're a genius. And so that's another tool that I really think that if you don't, it's on my wish list to get the G2. If it's not on yours, I would have those tools definitely in your grab bag, in your arsenal. Wi-Fi Explorer, thank you, Adrian, and then NetScout G2. There you go.
Very cool. You haven't gotten your sidekick then yet, huh?
My sidekick is on order at work right now. It's just
very cool.
So anyway, yeah, that's could we go on another 30 minutes on the sidekick?
Yeah.
Ekahau has just done a slam down great job on this tool. Oh my goodness. And I've used one, I've seen it, but I don't have my own. At least not for another 6 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, that's a backlog item for sure.
Yeah.
So any last thoughts, any last encouragement, or just, what wisdom, Mr. Expert, would you like to leave with us?
Yeah, the guru. Come up to the mountain and I'll give you a piece of bread and words from on high. No, I tell people, well, how do you move on to the program and keep your learning going? It sounds very simple, but learn something new about Wi-Fi every day. And that will just keep you moving on. I'm trying to think what I learned about Wi-Fi today, but I was doing some work online, and it just reminded me about channel bonding or something. Oh, okay, that's a good thing to remember. So I think as engineers, we need to constantly keep our skills sharp. And if that's a simple way to go about it, just learn something new about Wi-Fi every day. There's lots to know about Wi-Fi, without a doubt. And you learn something new every day, you'll be able to continue to move on in the industry, encourage others, and who knows, maybe you, as your CWNE, you need to give back to the industry. Maybe you can be a mentor of someone coming up in the ranks as well, just as you, no doubt, were mentored by somebody else.
Very cool, Glenn. Thank you for your time, sir.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it, Matthew. Have a good one.
Bye.
10 Talks.
In the words of the other Python that all nerds love, and now for something completely different. Hi, I'm Tom. Do you know what I do for a living? I'll give you a hint, not wireless. I build communities, and I maintain them, and I keep them from imploding on each other. And so when I talked to Keith about coming here, I said, why don't we talk about community? And he said, awesome. So that's why I'm here. So let's talk about a community. Well, what is a community? Well, other than the place where you live and a show that Dan Harmon made for NBC that they seem to hate, a community is a group of people that have very similar ideas and very similar wants, and they express them. We're all members of the wireless community, right? Do you know there are members of the Tech Field Day community in here who are delegates? Do you know that there is a 3D printing community and a yoga community, and as I found out last night, people that like to play video games? There are many communities inside of other communities. We learn about them, we join them, we move back and forth between them. How do communities start? Well, it turns out you find yourself in an island in the middle of Oklahoma, and you go, does anybody want to talk about anything that I want to talk about? And that's kind of hard because, again, Oklahoma, you can't find people to talk about technology and things like that. So you try to find like local user groups, and you try to engage people, and they're just like, if it's not sports ball, I don't care about it. And so you have to find a way to interact with people that are part of the community you want to. Thank you, Internet. Thanks to the Internet, we can find people now. We can talk to folks. And not only can we use Slack and Twitter and Facebook and a whole bunch of other things to talk to the people that we want to talk to, but as it turns out, we can learn about new things. There's no way I would have known there's a community for people that want to hover their drones in their backyard and take pictures of the stuff in their backyard if it hadn't been for Lee. Lee told me all about that and showed me the pictures too. And once you find that community, you have a whole bunch of new friends, and it's really awesome, and you feel like you belong for the first time in your life. And when you log onto Twitter, everyone's like, hey, Norm, even if your name's not Norm. And that's great. So now we've got a community. What are we going to do with it? Well, like my friend Chris here, we're going to find a way to truly harness the power behind our communities. Well, how do you do that? Well, the first thing you have to do is, in the immortal words of Her Highness Beyonce, you've got to build some people up and be willing to stand there and go, yes, queen! You have to shout from the rooftops. This is hard for people to do. It's very easy for you to look at something that somebody's doing and go, yeah, you did a pretty good job with that. It's really hard to look at your buddy behind you and go, did you see that thing that Jennifer wrote? That was awesome. That's what I do for a living. I take people who write things and I tell other people about the things they write. You can ask Rob. I think half of your YouTube series videos views came from us. That's a joke. But that's what I do. I've actually seen the metrics. When we share things, people's blog statistics go through the roof because everybody wants to go check it out. We want to share and we want to build the entire community up. Do you know why? Because when everybody's awesome, your level of awesome rises with it. The other thing you have to do is never stop learning. I actually like the fact that Scott just a minute ago was like, I wasn't a CWNE. I had taken none of the tests before I came up and presented last year, and now look at me. I are a CWNE. You can't stop learning, but not only that, you have to encourage others to learn. Ask the telco guys what it feels like to stop learning new things. If you can find them, because none of them exist anymore. Who runs old phone systems other than the Department of Defense? Data processing people. Yeah, there is nobody left in that area because none of them wanted to learn. And the ones that did, like our friend Amy here, well, she's at a wireless conference and not a voice conference for a reason.
Not at a voice conference?
You have to encourage people. You have to make people want to learn more. That's why a lot of these programs like How Masters are great. UC's like, you know what? I want people to learn my stuff. This one's kind of interesting. Do you know how you harness the power of your community? You find people that don't agree with you and you talk to them. Yeah, we'll talk about that in just a second. But if you only surround yourself with people who agree with everything you say, somebody is wasting their breath. You have to engage folks. I don't agree with everything Devin says. I'm going to talk to Devin. Do you know why? Devin points out the holes in my arguments. Now, we do this a little more civilly than some people. And there are people that I'm downright not civil with anymore because it turned out that their style of telling me that I was wrong usually involved a whole bunch of curse words and some things about my mom. I don't want that. What I want is, sir, I respectfully disagree with your opinion and I would like to point out why I think you're incorrect. I'll listen to that. My mom doesn't care either way. Now, this is a really exciting one because I can guarantee you at least 20% of the people in this room have used social media to get a job. Get a better job, get a different job. Norwood did. Where'd Norwood go? He's hiding from me. He's eating lunch. He had to feed the baby. Have you guys ever called somebody and asked for a job reference? Hey, can you please call these people and tell them I don't suck? Have you ever given a job reference on LinkedIn? Hey, this person does not suck. Can you imagine how awesome it would be if 100 people called all at once? It was like, Rob Boardman is the most awesome human being on the planet, and he did not pay me to say that. You know why? Because people think that other folks' opinions matter a lot, especially in an area where you have a lot of people who are considered experts in the industry. Anytime anybody calls me and asks for a job or a job reference, I'm like, damn right they're awesome. I don't think they should be being an SE for you, but I think they're damn awesome. That's a joke from Tech Field Day. At Tech Field Day, we have a rule that if it's the first time you've ever been to our event, you're either going to get fired or quit within 6 months. Because you're going to realize that things are a lot more awesome than you are where you are at right now. Remember I told you that my other job is keeping communities from imploding? It turns out that's a lot harder than you might think. It seems to be a statistic that if you get enough people together at one time and give them something to talk about, they're all going to start ending up arguing with each other. This is something we have to be very cognizant about when we're harnessing the power of our community, because unlike the emperor, there's no such thing as unlimited power, and if you start pulling it out of people, you're going to make them very, very angry. Everything goes bananas. Literally, I've seen this happen in a Slack channel, on a Twitter fight. Everything's civil, and all of a sudden people have knives and they're ready to stab each other in the face. How does this happen? Generally, it comes down to this. We tend to not respect each other. That's a hard thing to do. We argue with people. We don't argue against ideas. I know this because I have a gift for character assassination, as it turns out. My blog became huge after I told some guy in Canada that he can get bent because I'm really an engineer. I'm not his version of an engineer, but I started building on that. I was yelling at college kids. I was telling other people from Canada that could get bent. And then I realized something. I'm going to be that guy, the one that makes fun of everybody. Don't be that guy or gal or whoever. You have to have respect. Remember, I respectfully disagree with your opinion and would like to argue the merits of your viewpoint, not your mom smells. One of those is a much better argument than the other. Speaking of arguments, they happen. I'm not going to agree with everything that you say, and you're not going to agree with everything I say, but please do not shout at me because of it. And likewise, I won't shout at you. Actually, that was taken in the old HP briefing center before they tore it down. I like arguing with people, but I like having civil discussions. I don't like screaming. You can ask my kids, I'm not really good at it. But if you're going to have an argument, here's what you need to ask yourself. Is this the hill that I am ready to die on? Because it's great to steamroll somebody who has no opinion about something. It sucks when you find somebody who knows more about the subject than you do. But this is the next one is something that I think is really, really important for the community. I'm going to drop some truth on you. Now, for those of you who don't know, this is a nice man named Phil. Phil had a really awesome job at a sports entertainment company, and then one night he walked out with a mic, sat on the entrance ramp, and dropped some truth on people. He dropped truth for about 6.5 minutes, and it was a whole bunch of inside baseball stuff. People in his line of work tend to stretch the truth a little bit. He wasn't. Ask yourself this question. You're about to hit reply because you're going to tell Devin that he's wrong. Or you're going to tell Ben that he has no idea what he's talking about. Or you are going to tell Blake that I've got the answer to everything that is wrong in your life right now. Here's what you need to think about. Are they going to listen? Is the community going to listen? Does anybody care? No truth is absolute, and nobody's viewpoint is the same as yours. And they may love your truth, and they may want you to die horribly in a bus crash. You know why? Because you are upsetting their world balance and view. Don't do that. Truthfully, at the end of the day, when you are ready to pitch a fight with somebody, when you're ready to pick a fight, when you're ready to pitch battle, ask yourself a really important question. What am I about to do to the community? Because people are watching. If you really want to harness the power of the things behind your community, do you know how you do that? You be respectful. You build people up. You help people out. You tell everyone they're awesome. Don't argue with them. Don't pick fights with them. Show some respect. You'd be surprised what a good community can do to you if you're just willing to play it cool. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Wireless LAN Professionals Podcast, the podcast for wireless LAN professionals by wireless LAN professionals. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Wireless LAN Pros for all the latest news and updates, and also connect directly with Keith on Twitter at Keith R. Parsons. Head over to www.wlanpros.com for this episode's show notes, as well as the latest in all things Wi-Fi.